Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. InfoWarsStore.com.
True God of the universe, whose name is above every name.
Champions for Christ.
He testified to the greatest pieces of literature in the history of mankind because of the power contained within the words of this book.
You are living witness of the gospel message of faith, hope, and love.
Even the most remote areas of India, and especially Africa, have heard of him. Jesus Christ has been preached in and is believed on in all nations of the world. Our God is not like their God. This has been Daria for InfoWars.com.
Leading a frontal assault on the Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight, and it's Tuesday, May 16th, 2017. Here are top stories.
Tonight, the Clinton body count resurfaces as a private investigator discovers evidence that Seth Rich had contact with WikiLeaks prior to his murder. Meanwhile, the FBI and D.C. police continue to insist that it was a robbery gone bad. Then, cancer patients across the country are claiming that Roundup is the cause of their disease. So Monsanto responds by hiring an army of trolls to silence dissent on the internet. That's up next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
The reason InfoWars Life has 5-star ratings on major third-party sites is because I want products I'm going to use for my family. I take this, my family takes this, and then it funds the operation with the most hardcore, truthful information you're going to find anywhere. So what you find in our news is the same thing you find in our products at InfoWarsLife.com.
If I ever forget to take them, like I have a noticeable difference. I don't feel good. The nascent iodine is one of the ones that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, I actually have just run out of my super female. I had a few bottles at my house, and I've been taking it again, hitting the gym once again. Very exciting, feeling great, looking good. So, and I know my hair is luxurious once again. So obviously the super female is amazing. I love it.
Nascent iodine is essential. Survival Shield X2. If there's one product that I would say is life-changing that I would suggest, it's Nascent iodine Survival Shield X2. It's got a 5-star rating.
It's a win-win. InfoWarsLife.com.
Well, the big story today, depending on who you are, is either the fact that there was massive correspondence between slain DNC staffer Seth Rich with WikiLeaks people, or is it the anonymous source that said that Donald Trump gave away secrets when he met with the Russians at the White House that has been pushed back on? Well, it depends. If you are New York Times, ABC, CNN, BBC, CBS, NPR, The Hill, Politico, they're not interested at all in the Seth Rich story. But they've been talking all day about the story that has no sources, the story that says, well, we don't have any current or former government officials who've given us this information. Well, there weren't that many people at the meeting. But that's the story that sucked up all the news cycles. That story that came out 1 hour after Fox News broke an investigation story about the private investigator that had been hired by the family, saying that he knew of 43,053 emails, 17,761 attachments that had been sent by slain DNC staffer Seth Rich to Gavin McFadden, a man that had close links to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Gavin is also dead at the time, right? He subsequently died. It's interesting, isn't it? How many murders we see follow the Clintons. And of course, it's just circumstantial. It's just circumstantial that all those people surrounding them politically, people who know things about the Clintons, just happen to turn up. It's just unfortunate circumstances, isn't it? Just serendipitous for the Clintons that people who know things about them can no longer talk about them because they're deceased. And as they say on Breitbart, they point out the interesting thing here is the silence from the mainstream media about this. All these news outlets that I just reported to you. And the few that have covered it, like the Washington Post, as I point out, they waited 24 hours to publish anything about this. And then what they did was they published the family pushing back and saying, this is untrue. Or NBC that did cover it. They said DNC staffer's murder draws fresh conspiracy theories. And yet what it shows is that the conspiracy theory that we've been fed for about 10 months now, that the Russians hacked this, is falling apart. We're going to have an interview with Lee Stranahan, and we're going to show a different side of this, where he's followed the crowdsource narrative that's being pushed by the FBI, by former Director Comey. They are the sole source of the idea that the Russians hacked the DNC narrative, the DNC information. We've had a lot of people come out from WikiLeaks saying that, no, this was handed to us. And yet the mainstream media and the FBI are going to CrowdStrike. Who are they? They are the contractor for the DNC. They were the ones who were controlling their computer system. And they worked for Hillary Clinton indirectly. They're saying that the Russians hacked this information, and we've been saying all along, no, it was handed over. It wasn't even hacked. And then they took it a step farther, and they said the Russians hacked the election, implying that the Russians had gotten in and flipped voting machines. That was never the case. They said the Russians manipulated this narrative. They did it by grabbing electronically this information that came out of the DNC. And again, the only source on that is CrowdStrike. So we're going to talk about Lee Stranahan, who's followed this for a long time, who asked a question at a press conference last week at the White House, and the word CrowdStrike was stricken from the transcript. I think it's very interesting that there are people everywhere who do not want CrowdStrike mentioned. But let's look at what actually came out from Fox News. And this is this afternoon as the family of slain DNC staffer Seth Rich blasts the detective over the report of the WikiLeaks link. The family said that Rod Wheeler, a retired Washington homicide detective and Fox News contributor investigating the case on behalf of the family, said that he was stepping over the line. They said, we don't want this to become a conspiracy theory. They said this is unsubstantiated. And what he tweeted out was, he said, my investigation up to this point shows there was some degree of email exchange between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. It was very specific about the number of emails, the number of attachments, and so forth. But the family is pushing back on this. And I have to ask, if this was your son who was killed, would you not want to explore every avenue of investigation? We've said this before. What is a conspiracy theory? Well, a conspiracy theory, and of course, conspiracy charges are some of the most frequently leveled charges in a criminal investigation. All that means is that more than one person was involved in a crime. But when you're looking at a crime, what do? You always come up with theories, and then you test those theories against the facts. They're saying, we don't want to hear anything about this. They say those interested in pushing conspiracy theories will stop at nothing to do so. However, an FBI forensic report of Rich's computer, generated within 96 hours after Rich's murder, showed that he made contact with WikiLeaks through Gavin McFadden, a now deceased American investigative reporter and documentary filmmaker and director of WikiLeaks, who was living in London at the time. So now we have FBI forensic report within 96 hours, this is Fox News reporting this, that shows that these communications were taking place. A massive amount of information was being sent from Seth Rich to them. And the investigator, federal investigator who wishes to remain anonymous, said, I have seen and read the emails between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. He said the emails are in the possession of the FBI, while the stalled case is in the hands of the Washington Police Department. So the FBI doesn't want to investigate. The D.C. police don't want to investigate. And the family doesn't seem to want to know if the trail is going to lead to somebody that they like. I would want to know, regardless of where this trail leads, if it was my son. The investigator who had been hired by the family and who is a contributor to Fox News, Wheeler, said, I do believe that the answers to who murdered Seth Rich sit on his computer on a shelf at the D.C. police or the FBI headquarters. And again, the federal investigator was the one who came up with that exact number of emails and federal attachments, very specific, 44,053 emails. And they point out that it was just 12 days after Rich was killed when WikiLeaks published the DNC emails that appeared to show top party officials were conspiring. There's that word again, conspiring. Yes, they were conspiring to stop Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont from becoming the party's presidential nominee. And remember, we had WikiLeaks at the time come out and offer a $20,000 reward for information about the murder of Seth Rich. When Julian Assange was being interviewed, he said, we are very concerned. People are putting their lives on the line all the time. He said, look at the young DNC staffer, Seth Rich, who was just murdered in Washington, D.C. And they said, wait a minute, are you saying that he's the one who turned this? I'm not saying anything. He would back off of that, and nevertheless, they put out that reward. He strongly implied that he was the one who was behind it. And if you remember, the former UK ambassador, and we covered this back in December, former UK ambassador Craig Murray came out and responded angrily to the report that was published in The Guardian and elsewhere, saying the CIA concludes that Russia interfered to help Trump win the election. And he came out and said, BS. I'm calling BS on this. And they reported at the time, he said, I know who leaked them. I've met the person who leaked them. They're certainly not Russia. It is an insider. And that is exactly what Julian Assange said. He said, our source is not the Russian government. Our source for the DNC emails has not come from a state party. And again, this ambassador, who has more credibility? The people who are there with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks has never told us anything false. We've gotten nothing but false claims and accusations that, frankly, don't hold water from the Washington Post and elsewhere. And, of course, the CIA. And Julian Assange replied to attacks against him by the CIA, both last year and this year. Today, he came out and said, CIA is the most dangerously incompetent spy agency. And I think he's absolutely right. He said this came after RT asked the CIA to comment on the assessment of a former agency analyst, Ray McGovern. We've interviewed him here multiple times at InfoWars. Alex Jones has talked to him many times. Ray McGovern suggested that the capability to falsify digital fingerprints, as exposed by WikiLeaks as part of its ongoing Vault 7 disclosure, cast doubt on allegations against Russia in connection with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Ray McGovern said, could it be that the Russian hack, quote unquote, was really done by John Brennan of the CIA? If I were asked to bet on that, then I would bet that it was exactly that case. What does that mean? It means that these trumped-up charges against Trump, pardon the pun, are baseless. And again, I don't even think that it was a hack. I believe this information was handed over by Seth Rich or others to WikiLeaks. CIA Director Mike Pompeo had sparked concerns in April, reports RT, when he suggested that WikiLeaks would be described as a non-state hostile intelligence service. And so in response to that, Julian Assange reminds us that the CIA is the world's most dangerously incompetent spy agency. It has armed terrorists. It has destroyed democracies. It's installed and maintained dictatorships the world over. There are good men and women at the CIA. But if our publications are any guide, they work for WikiLeaks. You get that? You see, all we have to do is look at what happened the beginning of this week with the WannaCry virus. That is something that was created, curated by the CIA, lost by the CIA. The code was exposed. WikiLeaks was the white hat in this. I know they're going to blame WikiLeaks for this ultimately, but WikiLeaks were the ones that explained to everybody what the capabilities were. And they said, we will work with the various companies, whether it is Cisco, and they took them up on the offer, Google, who was not very interested, Microsoft, who was only moderately interested. And they said, look, a lot of these companies who have heavy contracts with the government are not interested in fixing these exploits. They put out the user manual so people would know what the capability of the government was and the way that the CIA is destroying our security, not enhancing it. And so when we look at this, where are we today? Tonight, as this is starting to really gain traction everywhere except in the mainstream media where they want to push back on it as a conspiracy theory. Tonight we have a new conspiracy theory coming from more anonymous sources coming out of CNN and elsewhere, saying that Comey wrote in a memo that Donald Trump had asked him to end the Flynn investigation. And I'll just leave it at this for the moment. What we have in the CNN story says CNN has not viewed the memo, but sources described it to CNN. So there you go. I guess we can trust that. Or can we? You know, today we had a series of tweets from Matt Drudge. He slammed the media blood sport of going after Trump. You can see the InfoWars article that we have where we lay out all the different tweets going back and forth between basically Matt Drudge commenting on the tweets that came out of Glenn Kessler, who is an employee at the Washington Post. Glenn Kessler talked about how there was applause as their Russia leak scoop breaks the Hollywood Access record for the most readers per minute, then came out shortly after that, said, correction, the most readers per second. So they're very excited about this. They were able to take over the news cycle all day. And with the exception of the Drudge Report, with the exception of InfoWars and Breitbart, Daily Caller, some others, the mainstream media, as I listed that at the beginning, they focused on this made-up story. This is a fake story, folks. It's a fake story. McMaster's came out, poured cold water on it, and we've talked about that. Was this something that McMaster set up? I don't know, but nevertheless, it has been thoroughly debunked by the people who were there, and nevertheless, it took over the entire news cycle for the day. And Drudge points out that we have the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, who's personally motivated to engage in blood sport going after Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, hey, maybe we need to take a look at Amazon and break up this monopoly. Well, of course, that's the very reason why Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. It was a pittance for him to buy the Washington Post for $250 million. Let's put it in the perspective of what it would cost you to spend $250 million to buy the Washington Post. And why would he want this? He wants this, of course, because he wants to be able to protect himself in business. Anybody who wants to do business on a big scale today better pay off the protection racket in Washington, D.C. And you better have some friends if you want to start some new businesses like a satellite launch system, or if you want to have drone delivery. You better make sure that you got somebody to shut down the FAA or to give you exclusive privileges that other people don't enjoy. That's why the Washington Post is so important for Jeff Bezos. So he spends $250 million to get this. What would that cost you if we normalize that purchase price down to your income? You know, his income is only $1.6 million. That's his salary and compensation. But his net worth is really what you have to look at. He makes his money from the stock that is skyrocketing. Of course, Amazon's doing a great job. His stock should be going up. But his investment in the Washington Post is going to protect that, is going to allow him to grow that. So if we look at his net worth, last year his net worth went up $30 billion in just 20 minutes. I'm sorry, $6 billion in just 20 minutes. So that'd be $300 million per minute. So at the fastest he has made money, he could have bought the Washington Post for less than he made in 1 minute, for 50 seconds, as a matter of fact. Okay, so we could look at that and we could say, well, you know, if you make $52,000, which is the average household income, that would mean that you could buy the Washington Post, if we normalize it to what you make, that would mean that you could have gone out and bought the Washington Post for 35 cents if you was, you know, that's if you had the kind of income that Jeff Bezos did. That's the kind of impact that it had on him to spend $250 million. But let's take another look at something that was his peak income. If we look at the stock income, that's really where his money is. His money went up by $30 billion. His stock holdings went up $30 billion last year. And, of course, we could also look at Amazon's revenue because that's really what it's about protecting. That went up by $30 billion last year. Now, if we normalize it to that and to your $52,000 that you make, that would be equivalent to you making $52,000, spending $433 to buy a newspaper. That's why the billionaires can control the information the way they do. Stay with us. We're going to be right back.
InfoWars has partnered with Defender Body Armor to bring you a new state-of-the-art line of advanced, highly tested body armor from InfoWarsStore.com. Defender Body Armor is certified to protect against all handgun rounds and even armor-piercing FN 5.7 pistol rounds. The secret to Defender Body Armor is its proprietary processing technology that disperses more kinetic energy at a rate higher than any other traditional body armor, using one of the strongest synthetic materials ever created, called ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene. Defender armor is also super compact and lightweight. There's a reason the Department of Defense chose Defender to manufacture their new line of advanced lightweight armor. It works. Defender Body Armor is made right here in America and has received the highest level ballistic resistance certification from an authorized NIJ ballistic laboratory. Defender Body Armor is now available through InfoWarsStore.com, so you can defend yourself, your family, and finance the info war against the globalists all at the same time. A total 360 win.
You provided Alex with the caveman.
Well, so we've been formulating this stuff for a while, and we've been getting these different flavors, and I don't know about this one, and so I've been taking that stuff, and I'm an old man. I'm 42. I work out 5 times a week, if not more.
I hear you're okay in jiu-jitsu. That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
No, I'm not. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. But the point is that I have a lot of aches and shoulders, and there's weird joint stuff that I've had issues with for years. And this bone broth, the caveman bone broth, along with our joint formula, has just worked magic for me. And that's just, that's just from my personal experience. I think they're great products, and I think if anybody else has those issues, that you should definitely, you owe it to yourself to check it out. If I'm wrong, then hey man, write me a mean letter. But let me tell you, they work for me. And
yeah, they work for me too. We were talking about this earlier. Du and I play basketball, and I'm just now, like for the first time in my life, I'm 27 now. After I play basketball, my knees are barking. Like but the bone broth and the joint formula, like you just said, you combine those two. I felt the difference immediately. I felt it immediately.
Yeah, and it actually tastes good. Like, I'm really picky, and I will drink it. It tastes good to me. I love chocolate, so I really like the flavor of the caveman. So, if the bone broth if the bone broth is really that gross, I would never have known, because it tastes really good. And my favorite is the Super Female Vitality. So ladies, get yourself some Super Female Vitality if you haven't already, because it just gets me going. I'll take a whole bunch of that stuff before I go out and do
get it for your wife then too, or girlfriend.
Right? I go and take a bunch of it before I go do man on the street, and I just start running, zipping around, running right into the action. No fear, nothing. So,
well, that's a big primary part about fighting the globalists, is making sure that we stay healthy and stay clear-eyed and stay honest and stay humble. I hope that we do that here at InfoWars. We got a lot going on, and we're in the middle of the fight, so we really appreciate it when anybody supports us, either by purchasing our products, or you can even go onto our store and donate. We're doing this by the skin of our teeth. I know it looks like we're in a $1 billion studio, but Alex has never taken 1 cent of borrowed money at all whatsoever. This is all money that's come from you, the listener. So you've literally built this place, built this place with your compassion, and built this place with the support that you've sent us. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, because I know we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't have a voice if it wasn't for you. So once again, we got to thank the listeners for their steadfastness in supporting us. And even when we make mistakes, and even when we're not right, and even when we might go a little bit crazy, you guys stick with us, and I appreciate that.
We're going to talk to Lee Stranahan, and of course, we've talked to him before. He's been a reporter from a wide variety of news outlets, from Breitbart to Huffington Post. You can find him at thepopulist.us, also on Twitter at Stranahan, and he has a citizen journalism school, citizenjournalism.com. I wanted to talk to Lee because he was at a press conference last week. He asked a question about CrowdStrike. And, of course, he's done a series of articles. If you go to thepopulist.us, you'll see the articles that he's done about CrowdStrike. Why is that important? Well, CrowdStrike is the IT company that was hired by the DNC. They were the sole source for saying that this was a Russian hack, the information that was handed over about the DNC. And, of course, as Lee pointed out, back in March, we had former director Comey say that CrowdStrike was a great source, praised them for having revealed this, although he had never seen this information. So joining us now is Lee Stranahan. Lee, I want to talk to you first about this press conference last week when you mentioned CrowdStrike, and that disappeared from the transcript.
Yeah, it was very interesting. One minor correction, by the way, it's citizenjournalismschool.com, just so people don't go wrong anywhere else. But no problem. I appreciate you mentioning it. So I've been doing the White House press briefings. I did them when I was at Breitbart, and then they asked me not to do them, so I left Breitbart. I've been doing them in the past week or so, again, now that I'm less busy on my schedule. And they had... the president introduced a new executive order on cybersecurity. So they had a guy up there talking about it. And I thought it was a good opportunity. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting to me, David, being out here in the swamp. The people in the press room, this sounds like a cliche. We talk about it all the time, but it's really true. The inside the Beltway people don't actually care about the people outside the Beltway. I never see them ask a question that is based on what people are interested in. Do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's really weird. And they don't even pretend to care. And so they were talking about these cybersecurity measures and the possible use of private companies. And so I tried to get a question in. And as they were breaking up, I said, because they'd mentioned that one of the companies that would be involved is Facebook. Now, my question was, a lot of people might be concerned that politically motivated companies like Facebook would be involved. Yes. And as I'm shouting the question, the guy starts, because by the way, often if you shout a question, they will turn around and come back and answer it. So then I mentioned CrowdStrike, and a number of people, I have a fair number of followers on Twitter, heard me say CrowdStrike. They were like, I heard somebody say CrowdStrike. That must have been Lee. And I did say that, because my question was basically, what about people who are concerned about the involvement of private companies that have political motivations, like you mentioned Facebook, and this company CrowdStrike, who are the only people to have examined the DNC servers? I got as far as CrowdStrike, and the guy who was listening, you can see it on video, then turned around and walked out, okay? Now, then every day a transcript comes out of the press conference, and I noticed, and the only thing that was weird to me about it was I had 5 people on Twitter say, I heard you say CrowdStrike, like as soon as it happened, okay?
Right.
And then on the transcript, there's no mention of CrowdStrike. Now, it could have been that I was over-talking with Sarah Sanders at the time. I don't know why it wasn't included, but what I know is 5 people told me, I heard you say CrowdStrike. Then later that afternoon, independently of that, CrowdStrike is no longer there. And it's disappointing to me because CrowdStrike is the key issue here, David. Look, let's go over this again. The media ask, well, the other thing I've noticed is they ask the same questions every day, day after day after day, right?
Oh, yeah.
I never see him ask about CrowdStrike. I never see him say, the DNC did not give up its servers. They refused multiple requests at various levels from the FBI. This is according to who? Me? To right-wing nut jobs like me and you? No. This is according to James Comey, okay? He said that in sworn testimony in the Senate.
Yes.
That multiple requests at various levels, the DNC never turned it over. Now, the reason CrowdStrike's significant is, and I wrote about this, and this is one of the reasons that, this is the question I wanted to ask that Breitbart told me to stop going to the White House. So I'm a little sensitive on it, right? But
yeah. But it's important. It's important. And it's important. It's interesting that they would ask you not to ask this question. But what is that question? Tell the audience.
Well, the question was, given the fact that CrowdStrike was forced to retract their report that came out December 22nd, where they claimed Russians had hacked Ukrainian artillery. Turned out to be completely false. And CrowdStrike used this. By the way, that date is significant, David. It was a week before. Remember how President Obama kicked Russians out, saying that there was conclusive proof of the hacking?
So it was a week before that.
It was 1 week before that. And CrowdStrike at the time said This is the connective tissue. This artillery in Ukraine, this proves it was the Russians, right?
So Obama threw out these Russian diplomats based on CrowdStrike's accusations, which were subsequently proven false.
And by the way, not proven false by right-wing nut jobs like you and I. They had to retract their own report.
Yes.
Okay? So let's be clear. This is not conjecture. They had to retract their own report. I have not heard a single question about that. Now, you'd think that Breitbart, I thought this has occurred to me. What I think they should have done was say, yeah, this is a big deal. Let's get because Breitbart's got more than one reporter in the room. They should have been, let's make everybody. That's a good question. Let's get that question on the record, right?
Right.
Instead, they were like, we don't want you to go to the White House again. And I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not that kind of guy. And so I'm like, well, I think I'm going to keep going anyway. Because I said to him,
well, it's very interesting because, as you point out, and you tweeted out, CrowdStrike is still the sole source of the Russian narrative. And I think today we're looking at issues around Seth Rich and the information that's come out that there's been something like 40-some-odd thousand interviews that went between him and WikiLeaks, and the comments that were made by Julian Assange and others, the UK ambassador, saying that he came to the United States to get information handed to him. It calls into question the entire issue of whether or not there was even a hack, let alone a Russian hack. So was this information handed over? Was it handed over to Guccifer? Or did Guccifer hack that information? I think all that stuff is now up for re-examination.
Well, I on the Seth Rich story, I'm cautious about things, David. The way I work as an investigative reporter is I don't like to report things that are not 100% rock solid.
Sure.
And I had contact with Guccifer too. And some of that contact was after Seth Rich's, all of it actually, forgive me, all of it was after Seth Rich's death.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any indication from my dealings with Guccifer 2. I was the guy, they've subpoenaed Roger Stone. I was the guy who got Roger Stone onto this story.
Mm-hmm.
I contacted Roger and I said, I think this is a big story. And I wrote a piece with him that went up under his byline on this. So, I got no indication of that in my dealings with Guccifer 2 at all, that he had been dealing with somebody. Now, that being said, do I know who Guccifer 2 is? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Do I know how they got the information? Absolutely not. I know that they had information because some information that Guccifer 2 gave me later was released publicly. Does that make sense? In other words, he gave it to me privately.
Yeah.
A week later, by the way, Breitbart didn't want to run with that. And a week later, it came out, and I'm like, okay, well, there it is. Breitbart they were like, well, let's have him put it out, and then we'll write about it. But
I don't want to cut this off. This is an interesting line of, we need to get back on this, but we're about out of time. We've only got about 50 seconds left. I know you wanted to talk about what's happening with George Soros and his war on law enforcement in Florida. You got a whole series on that at thepopulist.us. Give us a quick overview of that. You got about 40 seconds.
You bet. I think this is especially important, David, because it's police week. And we've already had 2 cops shot and 1 killed this week. This is when we honor police. George Soros has been engaged last year. He spent millions of dollars in local races. And he's had an effect in Florida. A state's attorney he helped elect said she's not going to file the death penalty on any cases, including that of an alleged cop killer. I have it at thepopulist.us. We're going to have more coming on this. This is how Soros doesn't just affect things internationally and nationally, but he's now working on a local level, David, and it's very dangerous, especially to law enforcement.
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. InfoWars Live Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by InfoWars Live is an easy way to naturally naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently, we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make. We fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. I'm not gonna sit here and take it anymore.
It isn't uncommon in the United States for its citizens to wind up at the foul end of the deep state's ire, as is eventually revealed by buried evidence spun out of the narrative by the Mockingbird media. Now more details surrounding the body count connected to the DNC's muzzling of WikiLeaks have begun to find solid ground, and it could open an investigation involving the D.C. Mayor's office, the D.C. Police Department, and rocket its way into the chain of command at the DNC as to why a DNC staffer who reportedly sent 40,000 emails to WikiLeaks director and BBC Democratic National Committee history documentarian Gavin McFadden was murdered in an as-yet unverified robbery on July 10th, 2016. WorldNet Daily reported a federal investigator who reviewed an FBI forensic report detailing the contents of Rich's computer generated within 96 hours after his murder told Fox News that Rich made contacts with WikiLeaks through Gavin McFadden. Seth Rich's parents, Mary and Joel Rich of Omaha, Nebraska, said in August of 2016 in an interview with the Daily Mail that their son had been asked to join Hillary Clinton's campaign 4 days before he was murdered.
Our whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
If it were one death, perhaps you'd say, all right, a coincidence. 3 deaths? Really? I don't think it's unreasonable to scratch your head and say, why are 3 insiders with intimate knowledge of the machinations at the DNC that stole this nomination for Hillary now pushing up daisies? That's entirely...
I'll tell you this, Assange has got giant eggs, because if you look at this, he knows it's hurting Hillary. She's degenerating under the stress daily. Whatever's in these emails has got her scared to death. You can see it. She looks like a cornered, hairless rat.
Because I am familiar with D.C. and, I've been a previous D.C. homicide detective, they just wanted me to kind of look into the case a little bit more, see if I can develop some leads, interview some people, which I've been doing over the past 3 weeks. What's really interesting, since I've been looking into this case, I've uncovered quite a few things, but not necessarily related to Seth's death, but related to a possible underground corruption, organized crime, corruption group that may be operating in the district. Because I've started looking at other homicides and deaths that were called homicide or called accidental deaths, but could have been homicides. So this case, Allison, may actually open up a can of worms as far as what's been going on here in D.C.
My job is to shut other white people down when they want to interrupt.
Let the acting or future FBI director, the Washington, D.C. Police Department and Mayor's Office, and your representatives know that you want the location of Seth Rich's laptop to be public, and immediate further exploration into the involvement of the DNC and the finer points surrounding the untimely deaths of Sean Lucas, John Ash, and Seth Rich. John Bound for InfoWars.com.
Let's talk about a little bit of good news. A lot of people in the public don't really care about the Game of Thrones that's happening in the District of Columbia. They want to see results. And so a lot of people who voted for Trump are concerned because they don't see a wall yet. Of course, Trump can't do that by executive order. He has to get the Congress to work with him on that, work with him in terms of hopefully repealing Obamacare, or at least changing it, deleting some of the taxes and the mandates and the burdens that have been put on our economy by Obamacare. But even with that happening, we have seen the number of border crossings drop dramatically, and we have seen unemployment drop dramatically. So we've seen more jobs being created, and I think those two are related. Even though we've had no wall, what have we seen? We've seen a disincentive for people to come here. There's been a lot of talk, much of it by the media, talking about draconian enforcement of laws, discouraging people from coming across. But we do need to set up something that every other country has, and that is a requirement that you come in here with wealth and with an income, or you don't become a citizen. We're the only country that I know of that opens up its borders and opens up its welfare system. Nobody else does that. You can't do that in New Zealand. You can't even do that in Belize, yet we do that. We could also remove the incentive of the war on drugs for the cartels to come in here. But even without that, we have still seen a 67% decrease in border crossings at the Southwest. And Trump talked about that. And we've heard him talk about that, saying that we're already saving American jobs by preventing them having to compete with unauthorized workers. And the reality is true. We have seen unemployment drop by 8.3% since January. That's a big drop, just as we've seen a big drop and border crossings. And I think the two are related, and I'll tell you why. Companies do not hire on good news or anticipation. The stock market can create a bubble based on that, but individual companies are not going to do that. They're going to wait till the money is actually in their pocket. So I don't think they're necessarily expanding their jobs that much. For the most part, they're filling jobs that are not being filled by people who are coming here illegally. But one of the other parts of good news that we're seeing today coming out is on the Drudge Report from Bloomberg, is that we have mom and pop restaurants are now trouncing America's biggest restaurant chains. They say Americans are rejecting the consistency of national restaurant chains after decades of dominance, and they're turning to the authenticity of locally owned eateries. And this is a restaurant research firm, Technomic. They said this really seems to be the dawning of the era of the independent. The independents and small chains are now outperforming, and the big chains are now lagging. For example, they're looking at a growth of 5% for the small mom and pops, 3% for the big chains. They even profile some small businesses that are operating on an honor system. The one that they picked out had a 63% growth. I think a lot of this is being driven by the desire for people to have better quality food. And of course, a large part of that is organic food. And at the same time, we see this concern. We have an interview coming up in the next segment with a farm out in Oregon that has been an organic farm for about 40 years. They've been informed by the local county government that they're going to be required, they have a new requirement for controlling weeds, and they're going to have to spray Roundup or similar chemicals. That will basically make their organic farm illegal. And it's interesting that this would all come up at the same time we see a massive lawsuit coming out with 800 cancer patients suing Monsanto, the maker of Roundup, claiming that the company failed to warn consumers about a cancer risk from the weed killer. Now, most of the people who are suing are agricultural workers, people who have been using Roundup on a regular basis. This woman who's profiled at the beginning of the CNN story says that she did this for 12 years. She did it for a very long time as a farm, but had cancer problems for 12 years. She had no idea what was causing her non-Hodgkin's lymphoma until she saw a cancer research report linking it as Roundup and glyphosate as possibly being carcinogen to humans. Now, this is something that was flagged by the World Health Organization. They caused a stir about a year ago, saying that glyphosate is, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans. They say the evidence in humans is from studies of exposures mostly agricultural in the USA, Canada, and Sweden, published since 2001. In addition, there's convincing evidence that glyphosate also causes cancer in lab animals. Okay, now the law firm that is representing about 500 of these people think that this is going to explode to 2,000 or 3,000 cases by the end of the year. Say this is the most used herbicide in the world. From the largest farm operations to backyard gardens, it's ubiquitous, and it's going to be required by some county governments as the only weed control that's going to be allowed. We have seen how that's happened. We've seen how that's played out in the third world. We have seen how in the third world, Monsanto will come in and encourage people to spray glyphosate, Roundup, do it to such an extent that nothing will grow there except their own seeds. And then they get the farmers so indebted to them because they have to buy those seeds every year from Monsanto. They can't propagate their own seeds. They have to buy them every year from Monsanto. They're committing suicide in massive numbers in India. And while all of this is happening, we see that Monsanto is now being accused of hiring people to troll the internet and to shut down any criticism of them. Stay with us when we come back.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine or we will die. And you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities and is tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician, because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician, because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it, but consult your physician first before you get powerful Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139.
As I just reported the nightly news tonight, we have 800 cancer patients in the process of filing Monsanto. That may expand. They expect it to thousands of people, based on studies that have been going back and forth on the long-term health effects of glyphosate. Now, we have on the line right now CEO David Stelzer, CEO of Azure Farms in Oregon. They are an organic farm, and they're being threatened by the county, saying that they're going to come in and do weed control. They're giving them some options, and of course, glyphosate is one of the options here. So we want to talk to him about his organic farm, why people want to farm organically, why you as a consumer would want to have food that doesn't have glyphosate on it. Because the people that we're seeing, interestingly enough, at this point, the people who are involved in this lawsuit with Monsanto, of course, are agricultural workers. But there are people who are concerned about the health effects of the food that they eat, any residuals that may be on it. So joining us now is David Stelzer of Azure Farm. Welcome, Mr. Stelzer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your farm, your operation there that you have in Oregon.
Well, we're one of the oldest organic farms in Oregon. My father actually started farming organically in 1973, so way before it was popular. The particular farm where the issue is in Sherman County is about 2,000 acres. We grow mostly grain, peas, and cattle there of various sorts. Mm-hmm. Our total farming operation is that's roughly half of our operation as far as size goes. That's in that county.
And so why do you farm organically? Because, you know, if people use the chemicals, everything looks so nice and neat and tidy. You know, we see this happening in the neighborhoods. I recounted it earlier that, you know, we had the same situation in the neighborhood where we lived. We had neighbors who would spray their lawns with chemicals. And we had a dog who died of the same kind of cancer that agricultural workers were getting when they were using weed control. So it's kind of a canary in a coal mine for my family to see our dog die from that, because animals, it takes that effect on them much quicker than it does on humans, who might do it for a couple of decades before they notice any health effects.
Yeah, that's right. So it is a conscious decision. There's two reasons. One, and the primary reason, and why we did it back in the 70s and have stuck with that principle ever since, is because it's the right thing to do. We were seeing the effects of toxic chemicals, and even more than toxic chemicals, the out-of-balance fertilization that was happening in the soil, creating subpar food. That's why we get all these autoimmune diseases that, like celiac disease, where tons of people are getting serious allergy to wheat. And it's not because of wheat or the gluten. We've been eating wheat for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. It's the way that it's raised and why the protein content is out of balance. The amino acids don't. The gluten is the very first thing that forms. It's the first amino acid. The rest of it's not there. So the body, in order to balance, is trying to pull up these other amino acids, and there's just not enough there. It can't do it in the long term, and we get an autoimmune disease like celiac disease. So, and then the second reason is because, and this one I think should resonate with all farmers, is that is what the market is demanding now. Right now, you know, when I first started farming organically, the premium on organic wheat was maybe 25 to 30%. If you were doing really good, you could get that much more. Today, because of the consumer demand, because of people that realize glyphosate and these other toxic chemicals are harming their health and harming our planet, the differential now is 3 times. So we can get 3 times as much for organic wheat as conventional wheat is worth today. So that really should make any farmer take notice. Hey, why grow something that nobody wants? Let's grow the products that people want.
Exactly. So you realized this 40 some odd years ago, and now you're seeing a huge differential because you're answering a market need. And yet there are people in your neighborhood who, I guess, filed a complaint with the county that they don't like your farm for some reason or the other. Tell us, what is being threatened by the county against your farm?
Well, the complaint is that weed seeds from our farm are getting onto neighboring farms. So we need to control our weeds, and they have a noxious weed ordinance in the county that says if you refuse to control your noxious weeds, that they will do it for you and bill you for it. So and it says in the ordinance that you must do the best known methods. So they're redefining the best known methods to only include herbicides.
Wow.
So there are other methods. There's biocontrols and other things that we've been using and trying to use, cultivation and so on. But the definition is beginning to change because of these. So that's the issue, is now only herbicides are qualifying as a good method.
Very interesting, because you've been doing this for over 40 years, and now they're changing the definition of weed control, so to require you to use chemical herbicides rather than other types of weed control. And I think it's kind of interesting because we've seen in the past that Monsanto, of course, sells and creates its own seeds that do not reproduce. They are glyphosate friendly, and they want people to use those seeds. However, sometimes those seeds have, just like you're talking about weed control, they have gone over onto adjacent property. And once Monsanto finds that, they will sue the people on whom these seeds have propagated over. They find the DNA over there on the adjacent field, and they sue these people for having their seeds illegally. So we see them working both sides of this issue to the disadvantage of people who do not want to buy into their corporate model, who want to grow organic food, don't we?
That's kind of what it looks like. Using the same standards, we should be charging those neighbors for the weed seeds, that those weeds will actually make their land a little healthier because it brings up calcium and nutrients from deep in the soil. Mm-hmm. But, it's a different thought process. So as an organic farmer, that's the way I think, that some of these weeds, and not that I'm trying to grow weeds, we're not, I want to control those weeds as much as possible as well. But really, that's what it's a sign of. It's a sign that the soil needs specific help. Biodiversity is what nature does. Biodiversity is in all of nature. Anywhere in the forest or the prairie or everywhere, there's a huge array of plants that grow. In monoculture that we do in modern agriculture, it's against nature. So nature automatically tries to create biodiversity, and that's why we have noxious weeds. And as a farmer, if we can do a good job at companion planting and crop rotation and so on, then those weed problems will go away. And so, yeah, we definitely have room to improve, even though we've been doing it for 40 years.
It sounds like you know exactly what you're doing in terms of your farm or your organic farm. You thought this through. You've had 40 plus years experience in this. But what are you going to do about this legal issue that is in front of you? Tell us what the situation is with that, and what we've got about just under 2 minutes left in the interview.
Well, so what I did and why I'm talking to you and several others is that I went ahead and put it out on social media, and it went crazy. I never expected anything like it. It went viral on social media, this problem that we're facing. So now that thousands of letters have come into the county, they're already softening their tone a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I really think that this will take care of it. I don't know that for a fact. We have a hearing tomorrow night at 4:00 that
tell people where they can find your information so that they can send letters to the county, because as you're pointing out, there's a demand for this. The consumers want this. That's why it is selling at such a high multiple to other types of food. People want organic food. If they want organic food, they're going to have to stand by the organic food producers who are being challenged by the pharmaceutical industry, by Monsanto and others who want to sell these pesticides. So tell people how they can get in touch and get involved here.
Oh, you bet. We've got a video right on the very front page of our website, www.azurestandard. That's AZURESTANDARD.com. So just go to azurestandard.com. There's a video about the issue right on the landing page.
Great. That's great. So go there. If you want clean, organic food, you have to speak up for it. And, of course, stand by the farmers as they are picked out one by one. Again, go to azurestandard.com. You can get the information there. Stand with the people who are growing your clean food. Thank you so much, David Stelzer, CEO of Azure Farms. Good luck with that fight.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality InfoWars Biome Defense probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high quality known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight, and it's Tuesday, May 16th, 2017. Here are top stories.
Tonight, the Clinton body count resurfaces as a private investigator discovers evidence that Seth Rich had contact with WikiLeaks prior to his murder. Meanwhile, the FBI and DC police continue to insist that it was a robbery gone bad. Then, cancer patients across the country are claiming that Roundup is the cause of their disease. So Monsanto responds by hiring an army of trolls to silence dissent on the internet. That's up next on the InfoWars.